So for today, I'm going to give an overview of where the Tianocore program is headed. So think of this as the baseline for future presentations when we talk about more technical stuff, because obviously coming into the program today, I'm literally coming in and giving you guys sort of, oh wow, that's bizarre. That is bizarre. So I'm going to be discussing the 2016 roadmap today, and so these are things that are actually happening this year. We're going to talk a little bit about changes in governance model for Tianocore, and then also we'll go through some workflows for the code and defect management. So I'm not going to read the slide to you. You can read the slide while I talk. How about that? So one of the things that we're trying to do with Tianocore is we're trying to open up contribution into the code base. We're also trying to increase the number of partners who use the code base as well. And in the past, the code has really been viewed more as sample code instead of true reference code. And so one of the things that we're shifting in the Tianocore program is we are actively seeking contribution levels from anyone and everyone to increase the quality of the Tianocore code. And so it's the fundamental belief that we have within the community that if we can improve the common code within Tianocore for common aspects of firmware that operate across the board, both in the client, server, mobile space, IoT, and the more contribution levels we can get into those common pieces, the better off the entire firmware community can be as far as raising the quality of those common components. And so we want to raise the quality bar, and we're also going to deliver on schedule. So this might be a new word for you guys, is we're going to have a concept in the Tianocore program of a regular cadence or a regular release cycle with Tianocore, which is something we haven't had in the past. And we'll talk about that more in the following slides. So with that in mind, there are a couple of tangible things that's happening this year, and I apologize, this is really low, so I'll read it to you. The first goal that we have is we're migrating from SVN, SourceForge, to GitHub, and this has actually been underway for just over a year now. We completed that a few months ago. So all of our source code now lives on GitHub. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues, there aren't problems we have to solve. There's still some complexities that we're kind of working through, but for the most part, this is pretty complete. The second one, which may be new to people, is, as you know, we haven't been very transparent on the defects that we manage within EDK2 and the Tianocore program. And so we're actually going to create a Bugzilla server, database to actually allow anyone and everyone to submit defects. And we will also work off of that as well. So Tianocore bugs will be in the Bugzilla database so that everyone can see what it is that we're working on and what the need is for the work in the code. The third one we're working on also is we're improving the code management process. And this is to mean that if you follow the EDK2 development alias, who's on that list right now? If you're on the dev L, can you raise your hand? Anyone? Yeah, a few people? Okay, so your first AR is to get on the dev L alias. So if you join the EDK2 mailing alias, you'll see all of this information. We're trying to improve how we maintain and manage code, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the staging process that we've set up as well. And also, we're moving our documentation to be open source. So our documentation today, the way it's managed is very proprietary. Intel sort of owns that, and we're pushing that back out to the community so that the community can contribute comments and changes and also help us improve the documentation as well. And like I said, we're going to establish a regular release cycle. We don't know what that is right now, so we're open to feedback if you'd like for it to be 30 days, 60, 90. Right now, there isn't one. So we are trying to create a regular release cycle so that Tianocore always releases on a regular cycle, and if you have products and programs that depend on Tianocore, you can rely on that cycle to kind of help you gauge where you would like to sort of align your development processes. And then, last but not least, the stewards, which I'll introduce in a second. We're also going to improve code design. So we're trying to figure out how to change the coding styles and code design of the actual code itself. And that's a longer term sort of effort. So something that happened this morning is Microsoft has removed the use clause from the UEFI FAT sources, which is really big news for the UEFI community. So we have FAT sources in the EDK2 project, which has a use restriction, and that is no longer there as of 2 hours ago. So Microsoft has signed all the agreements, and so that means that the FAT driver and sources that are part of the EDK2 are now strictly 2-clause BSD, which means that anyone and everyone can use it for UEFI firmware development. This is huge news for folks in the Linux community and also people who are developing virtualized environments. So you can clap if you want to. Brian, you can leave clapping. All right. Yeah. So if you care about this, it's big news. If you don't care about it, it's not big news.
What about MTFS?
So you can work with the USWG that had NTFS as a boot environment. Good luck with that one. All right, so when I talk about the Tianocore plan, I think it's really important for everyone in the room to understand, even though I work for Intel, and I am an Intel employee, as a community manager, and I talk about the Tianocore plan, there are very specific things I'm talking about and things I'm not talking about. So this slide just basically tells you, like, when I talk about the Tianocore plan, I'm talking about the code, the tools, the documentation, the web presence, and the social presence for Tianocore, right? I'm not talking about the FSP program. I'm not talking about the Intel Test Suite and other things which are very important. They're very important projects, but I don't own them. I don't manage them. So just want to make sure, we don't get confused on the terminology here. So the goals for this year, we're trying to increase community contribution and participation, and that means from everyone, not just individual contributors, but it could be companies, it could be OEMs, it could be IFVs. Anyone and everyone's welcome to contribute and participate in the program. We're not discriminatory. It's an open source program, and we want everyone to help contribute. We want to enable more end-to-end solutions based on Tianocore. So this is one of the areas where we want to improve today, right? If you go to the Tianocore program page, you'll see references to things like Middleboard Max, and other reference platforms, but we'd like to have like true end-to-end solutions. So if you are an OEM, if you own an end-to-end solution and you'd like for that to be something that you'd like the community to help improve, then have a conversation with me. Let's have a conversation with the community and let's see if that's something that we can integrate. We already talked about complete source code migration, deployment of the issue management system, and we want to align with the key industry partners as well. Governance. So this is new. Tianocore used to be community managed, community led, no real leader, no real direction on where things went. Intel sort of directed the progress of Tianocore based on a closed process that's internal to Intel, which many of you who are Intel partners know about. So we're changing things up a little bit. We've announced 3 stewards, and these 3 people are essentially architect level responsible people for the Tianocore program. So we have Andrew Fish representing Apple, Leif Lindholm representing Lenaro, and Mike Kinney, who many of you know, representing Intel. Now, these 3 individuals, along with myself, we are going to sort of help push Tianocore forward, right? So in the past, when we've had issues getting consensus on decision-making processes, the outcome today in this model is we're going to try to be consensus-driven, but when we can't be consensus-driven and we have a schedule to meet, these 3 individuals and myself will sort of make decisions along with the community to help push the program forward, right? So we always have to keep moving forward. So if the idea for Tianocore is if you participate in it, you're going to see us really focus on how do we deliver the next version of Tianocore with the feature sets that we committed to in time. And this is no different than other programs such as Fedora, such as Debian, such as Apache, Chrome, all these other open source projects. They all announce and say we're going to have X number of features by Y date. We're going to be having the same sort of behavior with Tianocore. And I think this will be the biggest challenge moving forward, is to kind of establish that cadence. So for the program workflow, what this entails is we're going to have a requirements gathering phase. So in this phase, if you have a particular feature that you want to include in Tianocore, let's say HTTP boot, or let's say the next greatest, biggest thing that just came out of the USWG and was ratified in the 2.7 or 2.8 spec or something in the future, then you can come to the Tianocore program and say, hey, I really need this feature for my program, right? I represent, here, I'm going to role play like I'm in HPE, because I know Don very well. So I work in HPE, and Don doesn't come back and say, hey, I really want feature Y in Tianocore because we want to meet, some program deadlines that we have for the end of this year in November. Can you make it happen? Right? So we would have a discussion with the community, and Don would present and say, hey, I have this feature request for this time frame, and the stewards would, line up and say, okay, here's what we're going to do for this feature. Who's going to work on it? Don will say, well, I have 8 engineers from HP to work on it, for instance, or some other people might step up some engineers, and then we'll get into the feature integration phase. And that's where we're going to develop the feature, integrate into the branch, and then validate it. So the idea is we're going to have open conversations in the community, right? None of this is proprietary or secret. It's all open in the field, and we're just going to say we want this feature by Y date. And that's really what this is sort of highlighting. And this cycle will repeat over and over and over again. So if someone comes in with a feature and they say this feature is going to take 2 years to develop, then we'll say, okay, keep working on it. Here's a staging branch. Get feedback from the OSVs, and then come back to us every cycle and tell us, give us a progress update on how the integration or how the development is going until we're ready to integrate. So it kind of looks like this. So this is an example with the Bailey Park program. Many of you know what Bailey Park is, and it's an Intel release vehicle for code for our silicon. Lenora may have their own. Other companies may have their own as well. So just replace this with your company's release process if you have your own code. But if you focus on the EDK2 tree, the idea is we're going to have a cycle for requirements gathering, a cycle for implementation and validation, rinse, repeat, right? And the staging branch is a branch that you can create today. So let's say that Dong is working with Red Hat and Microsoft and other OEMs in the public space to develop a key feature that all these OEMs and all these OCs need. They can create their own private staging branch. It's private in the sense that the information is public, but they are maintaining the code in this private branch, right? So then they can iterate through validation cycles. An example would be Secure Boot. If we go back in time to 2010, wow, 6 years ago. If we go back in time to 2010 when we're working on Secure Boot, right, you can imagine that there would be a Secure Boot staging branch. And in that branch, you would have as many firmware players as possible working to iterate on a common implementation for the EDK2. And then, of course, we're also introducing what's called the platform branch. And this would be a very interesting branch. So, again, we use Dong as an example. Sorry, Dong. But let's say that HPE decides that they're going to pick a laptop to be a reference platform for development. Then they could have a platform branch specifically for that platform that says, you can take code out of this branch to make it work on that platform. And that's kind of the ideal for the platform branch. Issue management, we're going to have Bugzilla. That is not a working link. It's just an example of the final link that we're going to have. But the idea is we're going to be completely transparent in our issue tracking feature management processes. For those of you who have worked with Intel and the EDK for a very long time, you know that this is perhaps the biggest change for Tianocore is we're going to be completely transparent on the issues that we are working on, so that anyone anywhere can pull up a bug list and say, hey, what are the bugs that EDK2 has and who's working on what, and give us reports. And the intent here is we're going to have it be completely transparent. The system will also send nag mails. So if you're working in the feature, then hey, please work in the feature. So the idea being, I just want to illustrate here, is this is a very common practice for open source projects, and so we're going to be doing that for Tianocore as well. So the defect workflow that we have today is not going to change. This is the default Bugzilla workflow. We're going to adopt what the industry uses in the other projects. So if you use Bugzilla for other programs, this is going to look very familiar to you. If not, you're probably going to say thank you for a simplified process, because I can tell you from the companies I've worked at, the bug states have been very complex, but this is pretty simple. And so the idea is we're going to have committees that check to see whether incoming bugs are valid. We're going to have code maintainers actively assign bugs in their code to developers. And if bugs can't be assigned to developers to work on, then obviously those bugs don't get worked on and they don't get checked in, right? So the idea is it requires the community to really stand up and own the code for their packages. As an example, let's say ARM has a package, and it's going to be up to ARM's responsibility to maintain who are the developers that they're going to have working on their package and on their code. And if they can't get anyone to work on the code and fix it, then obviously they can't make progress in their package, right? The same for other packages as well. OVMF, it could be someone from Red Hat, because Laszlo owns that. He could own, assigning who's going to be working on OVMF and who isn't. So those are just examples. So for 2016, we're looking to essentially get critical mass. We want to demonstrate obviously positive ROI for the folks who use EDK2 and Tianocore in the future. It's a big goal of ours. We also want to have you, as companies, focus on true value-add firmware, right? We're talking about in the server side, server management, hardware management, things that are really truly differentiating each of your products, right? We don't want every single person fixing the same bug in Pixie boot, for instance, or TTP boot, or something else, right? Because that's really a waste of resources. Because as we all know, in this day and age, if we're all fixing the same bugs in different code bases, that's not very wise use of our resources. And then ultimately, we want to improve the quality of the core software, which is what I'm trying to do with the program as well. So for more details on how you can contribute, go to tianocore.org. There's an article there on how to contribute. Also take the GitHub tutorial. If you're not familiar with GitHub, it's very easy. Anyone can do it. Kind of understand how this works. Obviously, if you subscribe to the UEFI SET now on GitHub, that's also going to help you in that as well, to understand how to get code from GitHub and how to possibly contribute bug fixes for that as well. There's an email alias at edk2devl. If you haven't joined that yet, please make sure and join that. And then we are seeking platforms to showcase Tianocore readiness. So if you think you want to have your platform be one of these, early adopter type people that you want to have people use for development, then we're definitely looking for that as well. Last but not least, if you have a phone, please go to this website. It is a survey. If you could take the survey, this survey helps us capture, I need to move it up somehow. This survey helps us capture where you guys are with development, what the needs are. And so this is an Intel survey. All the information is captured anonymously, of course. You can trust this link because I created this shortcut, otherwise the link is super long. But if you could take that survey, we would certainly appreciate it. And that's it. Any questions? All right. So glad to be back for UEFI, and thank you very much for your time.